Mike Neal, how are you doing this morning?
Good, good. Just sitting here, drinking some
Sorry,
coffee.
sorry it took me so long. I've had to rearrange a bunch of stuff because I've got at this time of morning sunlight just like smashing in from the window.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start, if we can, go back in your life to whatever you think is significant, but I'd like to hear about your work experience in general, like what age you started working or what types of jobs you had, whatever you think might be relevant. Um, but I'd really like to focus a lot on you and not dive straight into all the handyman stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
Sort
go
of like
ahead. We're
that.
actually recording already.
So, I think, for probably for the same for you is like the journey really started when I was like a kid, right? I think we were probably one of the one of the last generations to like be, out playing, until the street lights came on, and in the summer it was like a whole adventure, right? It was months of just going out and playing and exploring and doing all of that. You know, growing up in Missouri around a lake, often finding myself on pontoon boats and fishing, or building a clubhouse and camping overnight, starting your own
Yeah.
fire, out in the woods. Probably shouldn't have been doing that at that age.
Yeah.
But yeah, just dealing with some really like dangerous stuff. Catching copperheads with your bare hands, and crawdads and tadpoles, and exploring abandoned buildings, and
Yeah. That you weren't supposed to be
yeah,
exploring. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And we talked a little bit about it on the camp out, but like caving, just nobody knew where we were.
Yeah, it's
Just
just finding all of our boundaries and taking care of ourselves. Do you know who Michael Schellenberger is?
I have not heard of that name.
He's an investigative journalist. He's always been great, but he kind of became a little more famous when he did the Twitter files because Elon offloaded a bunch of like just all the records and let him go through and see what had been going on previously. But I was just listening to him last night and it was pretty interesting because he considers himself Gen X, and I don't know what all the exact age ranges are, the cutoffs for that, but he was talking about something interesting, which is our parents, when they grew up, mom was home, like typically across the board, just overall. Not everybody's mom, but mom was home and dad was working. And in our generation, the feminist movement had happened and a lot of changes had been made. So a lot of moms were working, and there was still plenty of moms home. But the kids of our parents, so all of us, even though some moms were home, the kids without the moms that were home, they were just home by them. I mean, we were home by ourselves all summer half the time. There wasn't an adult even home to know what we were doing or ask where we were going. But even for the ones with parents home, it's the ones without parents home. We would just all go to their house. And I
Yep.
don't think that was even all that necessary. I know for me, even when my parents were home, it didn't really matter if parents were home. I luckily grew up out in the country where it was pretty safe. But yeah, we did whatever we wanted when we were kids
Yeah. Yeah.
until you got
Same.
in trouble, until you
Yeah.
crossed the line.
Yeah. And then being grounded was was actually a punishment. Oh,
Yeah.
I have
Oh
to go to
yeah.
my room. I can't be out like playing,
Yeah.
riding my bike. That actually really wasn't fun.
Yeah. Missing a week of summer is not a good deal.
Yeah. And I was kind of in that same situation. I grew up, a very, very large part of my childhood. It was just my mom, and so she had to work.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, I have a younger brother. He's like a year and a half. So, but we are basically the same age. We had to take care of each other, in a lot of ways. So I think from like a really young age, I just had that sort of no fear, um, and exploring, like you said, exploring boundaries. Um, so I think that does lend to, doing this business kind of thing of like building or going into new situations. There's a certain level of confidence that's just within myself that I'm like, I can probably figure it out or find the answer or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not as scary, I think, as it I would imagine it to be for maybe somebody that's younger that
Yeah.
didn't have those like early childhood experiences the same that we share.
Yeah, figuring it out, solving your own problems. I don't know about you, but I mean, when I was a kid, we got in a few binds, that we shouldn't have been in with no parents around to help us out. We had to get ourselves out of them. And I think,
Yeah.
like you were saying, I think that transfers into adulthood too. You can be scared of something or know, you can go into it knowing that you don't know and just kind of be okay with that. Just being okay with the unknown and having that confidence that you'll probably be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, but like moving forward, work experience, I started working when I was pretty young, just whatever little things I could do, raking leaves or, shoveling snow. Um, not I don't know really know what the drive was. More of I think it was just I could do something that was useful, but then like I could earn some money. And then I felt like, okay, then I've earned this, so I can spend it on whatever I wanted,
Yeah.
and not really needing to ask my mom, which
Yeah.
I was aware our situation was tight,
Mhm.
to say the least. So it was, yeah, that was sort of like, I guess, the motivation young. But I think I've pretty much always been working, since I was like 14, had a worker's permit. Um, eventually got, was in high school and got kicked out for a really silly reason. But I didn't like high school or school at all, really.
Dude, you and me
Um,
both. High school
yeah,
felt like a waste of time to me. I already knew I was joining the military. I already knew I was smart enough, and I really felt like, if I got to learn this stuff, fine. Let me come show up for however many hours out of the day it takes. But going to this place every morning, like being basically an adult, having a job that I go to after school, like a 40-hour a week adult job. And then all of a sudden I got to wake up in the morning and I got to go just sit in a desk and listen to a bunch of people. And most of what they're saying and most of what we're doing isn't learning. It's like, what is it? Maybe 30-40% of your day in high school is spent actually learning. And the rest
yeah,
of it's just being quiet and shutting up and waiting for the next class.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and I can't. I'm going to say something, but I'm sure that there's a large part of it that is on me. I was not as motivated as I may be making myself out to be. I was actually quite self-centered and lazy, and I mean, I was. I did not try very hard in school. I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. I didn't have a lot of friends. I'm a smaller guy. I got picked on a lot. I never had like the right clothes or the right shoes. So I always was in, the fringe.
Yeah.
So it was just not an enjoyable experience to me. And then on top of that, I'm not getting good grades, really, really bad grades, actually. F's, D's, I consistently got A's in science for some reason. But saying all of that, I feel like school failed me. And I know that's a big statement. And again, it's part of that is on me, but I really feel like they did fail because I look back at that time and I go, wouldn't this raise some flags to somebody that there's this kid, he's failing almost all other classes, but he's getting straight A's in science. So it's not like he can't learn
Which
something.
implies the intelligence is there. There's something else missing.
Exactly, exactly. And I was just, yeah. So in 10th grade, something happened where Me and some friends were playing around outside, and we put tape on the concrete outside the lunchroom, and it stayed there over the weekend, and it fused to the concrete, and they had to pay somebody to come in and power wash it off. And I guess the fingers got pointed at me, which I didn't really care. Um, but they basically gave me an ultimatum, and this was the beginning of the year. They're like, you can have in school suspension for the entire rest of the year, or you get 365. And I was like, okay. I talked to my mom. I was like, look, mom, I'm just tired of school. Like, I'll do whatever I need to. Like, I'll go get a job. I'll help with the bills. Like, can I just, this is, feels like it's like a way out. Can I just stop doing this? And she's like, look, I'll make you a deal. If you go and get your GED, then you can do that. If you promise me you'll get your GED, I said I will. So I studied for like 3 months. I went to like a adult education center where they help you, kind of look at your deficits and help you work on that. And I really committed and studied and was like, I saw this as like, okay, I don't have to go to school anymore. All right, I'll buckle down and start learning, what I need to learn. And I went and took my GD, passed on the first try.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was in my lifetime. That was like one big like wake up call. I was like, okay, I feel like I've been told my entire life that I was not smart, that, these grades reflected my intelligence. And I was like, that was the first time I was like, I'm just past this with like, a 10th level, 10th grade education on my first try. And I really didn't study that long, I was like, okay, something's off here.
Yeah.
But after that, I just started working.
Yeah. Fun fact, I actually in Texas when I was in high school, just due to a whole bunch of factors, I was technically old enough my senior year to be considered an emancipated minor. So I was 17, but in Texas, I believe it was if you're going to turn 18 before the end of the year that you start your senior year. If you're going to be 18 before the end of the year, then you are an emancipated minor. If you choose to be, you have to sort of declare it. But I actually, for a girl, always everything I've ever done always seems to go back, including having jobs and making money. It's all for girls. That's what our generation, anyways, was focused on. But
Yeah.
I actually withdrew myself from high school probably somewhere around 6 weeks into my senior year and went and took the GED. And that was more for my family just because they were super worried. Because my idea was I'm going to withdraw myself. I had moved out on my own completely. So my senior year, I wasn't living at home. I moved out. I needed to work full time. I had my girlfriend at the time, who eventually became my wife. Um, I was taking care of her. So I said, okay, I'm going to withdraw myself from high school. I'm gonna go work full time, which I already was, but I needed to work like overtime. I needed to sock a lot of money away in the bank because I couldn't afford to go to high school and just work full time and take care of both of us. So I actually ended up getting my GED the same way. And then I did follow through on my promise to my family. I went back to school, but I found an alternative school that was self paced. So you just show up in the morning, you got a long list of just all the requirements to graduate, and you can kind of pick a class, pick a subject, whatever you're interested in that morning, and just start knocking out coursework without all the listening to a bunch of lectures and stuff. You can just read the chapter, do the work at the end of the chapter, take the chapter test, do the next chapter, get to the end of all the chapters, take the final test, check it off, get your credit, move on to the next subject. But I actually got my GED as well. And I think I
Yeah.
remember getting a letter that, and my brain tells me I was top 2% in Texas. It may have been top 10%, but whatever it was, again, scored all the way up at the very top. And my grades in school were not good, like ever, 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 because similar to you, I think I was intelligent enough but there was something missing from school. There was something too monotonous and too structured about it. There was too much wasted time, and I just I felt like I was already an adult, just ready to work and go take care of a family.
Yeah.
So what'd you do after that? And by the way, don't forget to tell me, you actually haven't told me much about your time at the monastery. So if we're
Hmm.
not to that on the timeline yet, if we're not there, don't skip to it. But please, when you get there, I want to hear more about how that got started, like how
Yeah.
you ended up in that position and what it was really like, because that's a unique life that I'll never know what it's like to do. And I'm just curious from your experience. But please can pick up with wherever's appropriate to pick up at.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, it was just, just working, um, actual jobs and like trying to learn how to deal with, managers and expectations and that kind of thing. I didn't have, I was very much somebody that would stay at a job for, couple months, 6 months, maybe 8 months, and then try to find something else. I got sort of tired of it, or situations became difficult, or um, yeah, or just relationships within the job, coworkers or managers just didn't work out. Um, and so I did a lot of different things. I was in sales for a while. I sold like furniture. I worked at Burger King. Like I mean, you name it, I kind of did it. Which, again, looking back, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't I don't see it as like a bad thing, of learning and doing all these different things. Probably wasn't very good for my bank account, having to deal with applications and interviews and that kind of thing. But I think that experience actually made me really good at interviewing.
Yeah, there.
Go ahead.
I said, there you go. Yeah, you had to be good at interviewing and selling yourself to a prospective client.
Yeah, yeah. There was very few jobs that, um, if I got in an interview, that I think that I didn't get the job. I ended up with working at the mall for a little while and ran into a guy from Pakistan. He owned his own jewelry business. One of these little kiosks in the middle. Um, and we just became friends. And eventually he's like, "Why don't you work with me for a little bit?" I was doing some like metal engraving at the time, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." So like we just became really really good friends, and that was fun because it was like I got to go to work, and there's really only one person. It's the owner, and we get along, and yeah, I'm just selling like jewelry, rings and necklaces, and I've got to learn a little bit about like quality and different metals and that kind of thing. And eventually, he he knew people. He's that was sort of his business, is like kind of doing these sort of temporary businesses in malls. And he had a partner, or he knew somebody that I think was a little more successful than he was, and said, "Hey, I have this opportunity up here, is about an hour away, doing another kiosk at a mall over Christmas." And he's like, "Do you He basically said, "I'll go and work for you here, but I have a guy that I want to bring." And he's like, he agreed. So I went with him, and we had an apartment. His partner, whatever, paid for the entire apartment. Didn't I did not have to pay rent, electricity, anything. I just covered my food, and I went to work every day. And I think that was probably like when I really started to like get on my grind and kind of get in this sort of mode of like go to work every day, show up on time, because I was completely responsible pretty much for the opening, closing, deposits, you know, sending him a list of things that needed to be ordered. You know, I was running essentially two of these kiosks. They were side by side. One was Zippo lighters, and the other one was just like fashion earrings. And so, like, I ran both of them every day, and I was rolling in the money. You
Let me
know, it was
ask you a
I had
question, about the
yeah.
money. Were you at this time just getting paid an hourly rate, or did you make more money if you sold more product?
It was both. I was getting a hourly rate,
Plus
and then
commission.
if I sold basically over a certain threshold,
Mhm.
I would get a kickback off of that.
So this might be something kinda like your first introduction to entrepreneurship then, because it's the first time where you working harder. Not you work harder and then later on, maybe if your supervisor likes you, he'll give you a raise in the spring. No, if you work harder today, you make more money today, and then you start getting that control and that autonomy over your income, which I think is a big deal, and I think why a lot of people hate jobs and why a lot of us become handymen or electricians or mobile dog groomers or food truck owners or any of those things is because we crave that autonomy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It was really the first time I think in my entire life that I felt like I was getting making something, you know, and getting a bit above, getting my head a little bit above the water,
Mm.
and not drowning and trying to survive. Because like around that time, you know, I was like, okay, I'm able to afford like a cell phone. You know, it was just one of those little flip phones from like Sprint. But
So what year are we talking about?
oh, geez, um, I can't even tell you. Probably what, like
Oh
roughly
01, 02, 03?
15 years ago, something like that.
How old were you?
22, 23.
Okay, cool. Cool, please
Yeah.
continue.
So yeah, I was, you know, I was not having to pay any rent, so and getting paid cash, and you know, this was Christmas time. Mall was very busy, and yeah, I was doing really well and really motivated to not just make money for myself, but like do a good job. I think that that's always just been a part of my personality is like I want to do a good job. And it's not even for somebody else. It's really for me. I want to know that I'm doing a good job for me. I don't really want to do something if I don't think that I can do a good job.
Yeah, yeah.
I probably pass on it. So, you know, I knew that that job was pretty much temporary, and it was, but it was a good time. Made some friends, and actually had like a bit of a social life. Met a girl at that time. You know, again, just sort of like very casual. Um, that didn't really go anywhere, but had to move back to my parents' house eventually, and fast forward a couple years, this same friend, we stayed friends. He got married. He met his wife at around that same time of me working that job. I think I introduced her to him. I didn't think that they would be interested in each other, but they were. They eventually got married, and it's kind of sad. He really, I don't know what happened, but he became extremely depressed and started drinking. And, you know, he had a kid. Yeah, it had a baby. And one one night, I was invited over for a New Year's party, and you know, there wasn't really a lot of people there. It was just pretty much just me, him, his wife. I think there was like two other friends, and they eventually left. But I don't want to put him on blast or say anything poorly about him. I'm just explaining the situation, and it will make sense. It's there's a necessary component to this story. He, at the end of the night, he was like, he gotten so drunk he was just laying against the wall, like essentially passed out. And his wife, try to put yourself in this situation. His wife's like yelling at him, and the baby's crying, and I'm just there. Like, I don't, I don't hang out with them like that much,
Yeah.
and it felt very awkward. And like, there was sort of a sudden realization of like, what's happening here? Like, what happened to my friend? And his wife suddenly just got very aggressive towards me, and like, I understand she probably was just frustrated with the situation, and I don't know what all is going on with their marriage and all of that, but she started blaming me for how he was, that he, that I was like a bad friend, and that just a lot of things. And I don't know, but it really made me feel really bad. And like, I left that night and went home, and I was, she said that like, she never wants me to come back. Don't come around, don't, you're not a friend, essentially. So like, these two were like my only friends. I had really nobody else. And so it was like a breakup almost. It really crushed me. And so I went home, and I just felt like I, in a lot of ways, I had nothing. And I started like reflecting on my life, and I guess maybe I was depressed or something, but it was just this moment in my life where I like started really like analyzing things, and I had sort of come to the conclusion that I was, I was destined to just be this low level worker, that, I wasn't very smart. I wasn't very attractive. I didn't have a girlfriend. I hadn't had a girlfriend for a little while. I really had nothing to offer. I'm a bad friend. I don't have any friends anymore. It was just this wave of, I am not going to be anything. Like, I'm literally, the best I can hope for is being some cashier at a gas station for the rest of my life, and going back to, my $400 rent apartment with like nothing in it and no one to share it with or anything. It was
Would it
just,
be fair to say that you were not scared that you were gonna be nothing? You were instead just kind of certain that you were nothing. Yeah,
yes,
I know that
yes,
feeling.
exactly.
I've been there in life for sure.
Yeah. I wasn't scared. It was just more of
An
this is an
acceptance, a
acceptance. Yeah.
resignation to it.
Yeah. And that night, something happened, something changed in me. Um, all I can really say is like, deep down inside of me, I sort of gave up. Like, I gave in, I gave up. I just accepted my fate, essentially.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like a normal kind of giving up, because I had done that my entire life, gave up on school, gave up on jobs, gave up on relationships, just gave up all the time, never really committed. This was like much deeper than that. And I I don't know. I don't really know what happened, but something snapped, and all of that, I could see all of that wasn't actually true. And I could see that there was all of this influence from other people feeding into that, and I just believed it. I just believed that, you know, that I wasn't smart because, it seemed like other people were saying that. And I didn't really have any value, much value at all to be added, because that's what I was, being shown through words and relationships. it complete. I literally woke up one day, this day, and then went to bed a completely different person. I don't know what you'd call that, if you want to call it a spiritual awakening or something like that. Um, but I spent after that happened, I spent 3 days literally like kind of locked in my room, pacing and systematically going through all of these beliefs that I had put on myself and like deconstructing them. Where I barely even slept. I kind of was like a little manic, and I don't take medication or anything like that. I'm never, not diagnosed with anything. But after those 3 days, I almost feel like it was like Jesus emerging from the tomb. I hate to like put that comparison, but like I was reborn. I was reborn with this concrete, reinforced confidence that like I was like, I I can do life. Like I'm no longer burdened by all these chains of these things that people's opinions about me and how people think about me. I was a completely different person.
And this all happened in order, right? Like you
Yeah.
decided you were nobody,
Yes.
and then having made that decision and entering the reality of being a nobody, that then immediately caused you to go, okay, that's not acceptable. I can't be a nobody. I'm not gonna be a nobody. And then you spent 3 days sort of thinking that through.
Yeah. Well, it was exactly what you're saying, but it was more of like not even deciding that that wasn't true, but that it literally wasn't true. It wasn't.
Realizing it wasn't true.
Yeah, realizing it exactly, realizing that it simply wasn't true. Um, and so very quickly, maybe only a couple days after this happened, my brother is in the Air Force. His wife got deployed, and he gave me a phone call. He's like, "Hey, my wife's going to be deployed. I would really like for you to come out and hang out with me, and just spend some time together." Not that he needed me there because he was lonely, but he's like, yeah, it would be kind of nice to have somebody around while she's gone. And I was like, at the in my head, I was like, this is perfect. I have nothing. I have no ties. I have no debt. I have nothing to hold me back. I was completely free with this new mindset of like, life is an adventure. Let's just grab it. Let's just go. Let's just take this opportunity, and whatever happens,
Yeah.
like whatever it is, let's just go for it. Like
Some of the best
this new.
things in life happen when you either hit rock bottom or at least just reach a point where you look around and go, this all has to change.
Yeah, it was very much like a personal internal rock bottom that had happened, and then this like reemergence of I want to rock and roll. Like let's go. Let's see what happens. Let's go to this new place and take risks, and
Yep.
um, just have fun. Let's just live.
Good for
And
you.
so, thank you. I didn't do anything. This happened to me.
No,
I
but
just
you did in terms of, when you hit rock bottom like that, and I know what you mean, an internal rock bottom. It's not that you were homeless or anything.
yeah
But some people get there, some people are built to be victims, and they get there. We I think we've all been there. It's not You're not the only one, I'm not the only one. I'll bet you most of the people who watch this are thinking back right now while they're watching it to a point in their life that was similar. And some people, when they get there, they decide that it's just not worth trying anymore. Everything's stupid, nothing matters anyways. What's the point? And they either kill themselves or they just stop trying and find out that there are new rock bottoms beneath what they thought was a rock bottom. They just give up. So, you doing what you did was not giving up. Whatever it was not giving up. And it was in fact you, because you could have just sort of wallowed in your own misery instead of choosing to just get up and do something.
yeah yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah, I guess it just I'm not saying that you're wrong. I guess from my experience, it didn't feel like I really did anything. It just felt like logically this is like this happened, and this sort of just yeah happened to me. Um, whatever whatever that is for whatever reason, um, that's how it played out for me. It could have easily gone the other way.
Yeah.
Could
So there
have.
was no Rocky music playing in the background.
No, no. um, so my brother offered for me to go out there. He was going to fly me out. He's like, "Yeah, just you can hang out." And I was like, I kind of had this new perspective in a lot of ways. I was like, you know what? Why don't I try to get a job? Why don't I try to get a job out there? And if that works out, maybe I can find like a little apartment, or maybe I can run into somebody that I can, roommate with or something like that. Maybe this is the new chapter of my life. And he's like, that's awesome. And he's like, yeah. So I went out there, and it was really tough for trying to find a job. I didn't, on one half, I wasn't pressured to do that because I felt like I was just there spending time with my brother, just living, But then I was also like, I'm going to try to like get out here, put in some applications again from my background of like job hopping all the time. I was like, this shouldn't be a problem. I know the economy is not great, but I should be able to nail something down.
Yeah.
And really, truly, I tried. I didn't have a car, so I was having to like walk everywhere.
Mhm.
But I was going out like almost every day, um, just asking. I literally would just go from door to door,
Yeah.
whatever it was, gas
Doesn't
station.
really matter. If you
Didn't
want to
matter.
give
I
me
didn't
some
care.
money, you can teach me what to do, and I'll just start doing it.
Exactly. I didn't care. I didn't care what the sign said. It just walked in, be like, "Hey, are you hiring? Can I fill out an application? Is there something I can do for you? Anything." And I tried for like, I want to say like 2 months. Nothing. Nothing. And so I guess after that, eventually I did slow down, right? You're out there, almost every day I was walking for 6 7 hours. Just eventually you run out of doors.
Yeah.
You're like, I have to walk 2 hours to get even to a new place that I haven't been to.
Yeah.
um
Where was this at?
Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways my brother, and you probably could attest to this, of like, military attitude is, you don't really give up. You figure it out, you push through. And so I was sort of in between. I was like, I wanted to try, but I did, and it didn't really work out. And I'm not giving up. I'm just, I'm not taking it as seriously, because I'm like, look, I gave it a shot, and maybe that means that um, when you're ready to for me to leave, then I will, and it's okay. Like, I didn't have a problem with it. I gave it a shot and didn't seem to pan out. But he didn't really like that sort of attitude, and he essentially tried to sanction my time and basically give me an ultimatum. He's like, I need you to leave at 8 o'clock from my house and not return until the sun goes down. And I was like, I'm no, that's not going to happen. Like, I understand it's your house, but we didn't agree on anything. I'm just here to hang out. Like, I felt like I could have done nothing, and this should have been perfectly fine because you offered for me to come out here. Um, and so again, I think he had good intentions, but the delivery was kind of poor.
Yeah.
And in my current perspective, I literally had no fear. So he kind of said what he said. There wasn't really an argument. We didn't fight or anything. He said what he said. He got a little angry, upset with me. Um, and then he left for work, and I was like, okay. I packed up all my stuff, which was a couple, like a suitcase and a bag, and I put the key on the counter and locked his door and literally just walked out. And I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know anybody. I'll guess I'll be homeless because I'm not gonna be, you're not gonna give me you're not gonna treat me like this, and I'm not worried about it. So I just like, yeah, I just walked out into homelessness,
Mhm.
and survived for about a year, being homeless in California.
It's probably a good place to be homeless if you're gonna be homeless.
Excellent.
The weather
Yeah.
must have been probably had
If you're
a lot
gonna,
of nice sunsets, if nothing else.
yeah, if you're gonna be homeless anywhere, California is definitely definitely 5 stars. I could walk down the street and literally just pick an orange off of a tree in
Yeah,
somebody's yard and have food.
yeah.
Like, I think that I don't actually feel like I truly struggled a single day. Um and part of that was sort of like this, call it what you will, like faith, trust in the universe, whatever. I was not afraid. And I kind of just kept that attitude, that I'm not afraid, and whatever will happen will happen. I stuck stuck to my morals. I was like, I'm not stealing. I will not steal. I will not lie. I will not cheat. I'm not gonna. I didn't drink any alcohol. I didn't do any drugs. I was just living, surviving.
Do you mind
You
if
know,
I ask, like, where did you sleep? Did you have a tent, or is it an overpass situation? Was it a permanent place, or were you, sort of migratory? Like, we don't have to put too much time into it, but I've never been homeless, and I have assumptions on it. What does it mean to be homeless, especially in California where the weather's nice? What do you do?
yeah, so it was a mixture of things. There were some nights that I had a couch to sleep on. There were some nights where um, I had like my spot, which was beside a AA meeting hall. There was like a dumpster, and there was like a chain link fence, and you know it had cardboard. It wasn't like a stinky dumpster. It was clean. It had like an overhang, and I had a sleeping bag, and it was a nice little spot. It was, I was safe there. Essentially, I could like, I think I had like a small chain and a lock, so I could put it on that little gate and then take it off in the morning.
Yeah,
And so, uh, you know, uh, it wasn't bad. It really wasn't. Really nice weather at that time, so like I wasn't ever cold or wet, or um yeah, it was a little bit of everything.
yeah,
um and food, that was never a problem. Water, you can just walk into pretty much anywhere, they'll give you some water, especially if you know you're somewhat, you're clean, and you're polite. You seem just like nobody would even know, right? Nobody would really even know that you don't live in
yeah,
uh, a big box, a big house.
yeah.
Food wasn't hard either. I think eventually I went to get essentially an EBT card from the state. I think I got like, I think it was like 150 to $200 a month, which was plenty for me. That wasn't, you couldn't eat the best, but I didn't go hungry.
Yeah.
Anytime I wanted something maybe a little nicer, I would just go to a restaurant like Applebee's or something like that, and just kind of hang out and wait for somebody to come out with a to go box, and I would just very politely, hey, this is a situation. I don't want any money. I'm just, I would like to have some food. Is that something you'd be willing to give me? 99% of the time, they would just give me the
Yeah,
box.
I probably would too. Like, I don't give money really to anybody ever in that situation, but anytime somebody asks for food and they literally, I'll give them whatever I have.
Yeah, yeah. Most people are like, I probably did. I'm not even going to eat this. I'm going to stick it in the fridge
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm going
Yeah,
to eventually throw it
home
away.
paid for it, and then 3 days later you go, that's gonna be junk now. I should have eaten it.
Yeah. So, they're surviving like that was really hard. And again, I don't know if it's partially just that I was made good decisions or smart or my location or it wasn't the Ritz, but it wasn't. I wasn't uncomfortable.
Were you doing a lot
Um,
of thinking, or were you doing a lot of existing?
um,
It seems like a great opportunity to just think for a year.
yeah, yeah, a little bit of both, right? A little bit of both, because I mean, you have nothing else really going on. Um, you have it's almost like the mind has no choice but to kind of reflect and think about things and um eventually I did get a job. I was got a job in the mall making custom t-shirts for a guy from Turkey, and this dude was like he absolutely loved me. He was like, you're like a blessing. His English wasn't very good, and so just by me, purely by me having better English, I was just able to sell more shirts. And again, in my tinkering mind, I saw his process and like just would do a little bit of like research and refine things and was able to create and make designs that he wasn't doing, and was just opening options for him and then showing him like, hey, this is how you do this machine, you can use it like this and you can create this. Um and around that time, um I had been just kind of spiritually exploring different things. There in California, there's a wide diversity of religions. And so, like, I just out of pure curiosity, I was like, oh, let me go check out this Hindu temple, and just go. Yeah, I had nothing else to do. Let me go talk to some people. Let me just strike up a conversation, just for curiosity and also just wanting to connect with humans, other humans with different ideas and perspectives, just purely out of fun and curiosity.
Yep, I've been there and done that. Not literally Hindu temples, but it's fun to just go dive into something new and just show up and go, what do y'all do here? I stopped at a place once. It's in my hometown. I can't even remember what they did now, but it was aerospace defense related. Like the name on the sign was a name I recognized as being an aerospace defense company. They were like outside of town in this industrial area. And I just went in one day and just asked them what they did. I had a job. I wasn't even looking for a job. Sometimes it's fun to just realize I don't know anything about this. I wonder if I just show up if I can learn some stuff about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just no judgment on them or wanting to say anything that they're wrong or anything like that. It was just I just want to know. I just want to like um, hear about you, hear about what it is that the way that you think, and just being like extremely open. And they're Hindu Sikhs. That was another big group out there, and Buddhists too. And eventually, I kind of caught wind of a training monastery that wasn't too far away. It was only about 45 minutes, an hour away. And I called because they allow guests there, and I was like, well, I got nothing going on. Like, why not go up there for like a week or something if that's what they all would allow, and just sort of immerse myself in that culture and that and what they do. And I thought again, it was just more of like an adventure, exploring and seeking, not really with an idea of what I even was looking for. So I called them and they were like, yeah, you can come out. Initially, we do essentially like I think it was 2 weeks for your first visit, and then if that goes well and you would like to come back, you could come back for a little longer. Um, they don't want to commit to having somebody there without kind of getting to know them. Um, I was like, that's fine. So I kind of bide my time until I was able to until my date was came up, and then one of the people that I was sort of couch surfing on, and I said, hey, I got $40, my last $40. You want to this should be plenty of gas money to get you there and back. You want to take me up there? And they're like, sure, so they drove me there, got out the car at the monastery, handed them my $40, my last $40, and was like, "All right, see you later," and just walked up the steps to this, not knowing anybody, not knowing if what was going to happen, and just lived there for 2 weeks, and it ended up being able to stay there for 3 weeks because the person that was going to be there to take my I guess my little hut, they ended up canceling. So they're like, "Hey, you can stay another week if you'd like." I was like, "Yeah, I'm loving it." So that's sort of how I got to the monastery initially, and so my time ended up being up, and I was before I left, I was like, "Can I would really like to come back." Um, in a lot of ways, it was like still being sort of homeless, but I actually had a single room, if all my for myself, a roof. There wasn't indoor plumbing; it was an outhouse. Right, a couple feet from my sleeping place, and I was ate a meal once a day, which that is just the normal thing that they do. And I think to a lot of people that probably sounds crazy, but it really isn't that extreme, especially whenever you get a meal and you're like, you can eat as much as you want, eat until
That
you're
sounds
full.
sounds fine to me.
Yeah.
I've half of my adult life, my natural rhythm, like not imposed by anyone. I drink coffee all day, of course, but my natural rhythm is to start getting hungry at about 3, maybe 4 p.m. And then I eat, it's not a gigantic meal. I don't, there's nothing gluttonous about it, but then I eat a lot, like until I'm full.
Hmm.
And then I'm just basically good to go till the next day. If my wife makes breakfast, I love her and I'll go ahead and eat it. If she makes some BLTs for lunch here and there, I don't mind eating it. But my rhythm is just to eat once a day, anyways. And then maybe a midnight snack.
Yeah. Yeah. We would have a meal around 12, 1 o'clock, and then towards the evening, roughly around sunset, there would be tea time. And so it's like you can have some tea or coffee if you want. We're just kind of like sitting around. And there's sometimes like little snacks like some sunflower seeds or something like that. Nothing like heavy. So yeah, you're in that kind of environment. I mean, a lot of ways you're a lot stress free, and so you're not doing anything real strenuous. So like eating once a day was really not a problem, at least not for me.
I don't think it would be for most people after they get you. If you're used to three
Yeah,
meals a day, maybe it'd be a problem briefly, but I think for most people, they just adapt to it.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, essentially, they were like, "Hey, your time's up," and immediately was like, "Hey, can I come back?" And they're like, "Sure." In about a month, we have a spot, and you can come back for 3 months. We'll schedule in to stay longer. So, funny enough, there was a guest there that I kind of got close to, and he was headed back towards the town that I had come from, and I was like, "Hey." on the same day I was leaving, I was like, hey, would you mind if I caught a ride? I'm not asking you to go out of your way, just like kind of just stop, let me out, and then you're heading that way anyway. He's like, yeah, of course, man. So he takes me to where I need to go, and he before I get out the car, he's like, hey, I just want you to have this, and hands me $40. So I ended up getting the $40 back. So I was like, great, here's the money. I already have the money for my next trip ready to go back out there after a month.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a kind of a serendipitous thing. Um, and then, yeah, I just kind of bided my time for the month and went back out there for 3 months, and while I was there, heard about a monastery that was being built in Virginia, which is where originally I came from. And they heard that they could use some help. And I was like, okay, well, I think that's my next step. Like, I can go back. I can go back to the state my mom is in, and the rest of my family, and then also kind of be able to go and do this whole thing, because it seems like this is um, useful to me. I'm gaining a lot of benefit from doing this this sort of routine, being around these kinds of people that think in this way, and just doing meditation. It's benefiting me a lot.
Probably
And
super healthy for you.
yeah, extremely healthy. Just really good sleep routine, and just sorting out, you know, a lot of stuff internally. A lot of time. So this was over. I'm kind of fast forwarding a lot, but this was like 10 years of doing this, of just kind of exiting the normal social way of being, and kind of living this alternative life. Did you have any specific questions
No,
about my
not in
part?
particular. I was just really curious how you got into it. But so
Okay.
you did ultimately go to Virginia to
Yeah.
help him with that monastery.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean,
So
you don't have to dive into all the detail, but like, how long were you there with that one?
I think I was there for a year and a half.
Okay,
So
that's a long time.
yeah,
You
so
got
I
nice and settled in and became a part of the community. All
yeah,
right,
yeah, exactly.
and
Yep.
then what happened? What's the next step
So
that led you to be to your ultimate handyman destiny?
yeah, I stayed there. I literally just living in a tent, in the woods. But I was like, I'm already used to this, this is like not no big deal. Um, and it was very interesting, because I'm living in a tent, but I'm like doing construction. Like I'm
Yeah,
literally like building a building, and small buildings and a very
yeah, it's a
large
little
one.
ironic if you think about it.
Yeah. So, you imagine like a construction worker like hanging up his hard hat and then just going and climbing into a tent,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
He's like a drywaller going home, and his house is just all studs and insulation.
exactly. For a little while I got to actually sleep in an unfinished bathroom. That was my house.
That was the peak.
Uh, so from there, I again just sort of met a person. I didn't know at the time, but kind of had some inklings. This was a very rich person, and he kind of saw what I was doing. And I think at that point in time, I was motivated, and I was like, I think I want to become a monk. I think that is, if I can do all of this and live like this, I'm essentially homeless. That's what they monks kind of are, like these homeless people. They leave society and they go into homelessness. I was like, I'm already doing this, and I can't be any harder than doing that and being on a construction site. I was like, I think this is me. This is what I am to do. And so he's like, hey, I'll you come out to my private retreat. You stay there for a month. Just, we're gonna test you out. We're gonna put you through the ringer a little bit. And if you still want to become a monk, I'm gonna take you to Burma. I'm gonna take you overseas.
Burma.
I have somebody there, a large monastery. They'll take care of you, and they'd love to have you as a an American being over there. You'd be really taken care of really well. I was like, let's do it. So I went to his private estate and essentially had this gigantic house all to myself. This is like probably like a in Flagstaff, in the mountains. It was probably like, I don't know, $500,000 to $800,000 house, multi-story. Um, I mean, I can tell just by the appliances. They're all brand new and sparkling with marble countertops. There was nobody in there. Nobody lived there. It was just a house, and that
Sounds like
was
quite the opposite of monkery.
yeah, yeah. But it was kind of barren. It didn't have a whole lot of things in it. It was like in a lot of ways, it was like a self-contained little monastery where it was just hardwood floors and not much on the wall, minimal furniture, very, very minimal. And essentially, that's just where I lived. I woke up um, completely alone, and just maintained that routine of, okay, we wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I sit for an hour of meditation and do walking meditation. Eventually, somebody shows up with my one meal, and I sit in silence and eat that. They leave. So I spent an entire month um, essentially doing meditation and reflecting and just um, doing that for an entire month alone by myself, except for that once a day visit. And by the end of that, I sort of realized, like, okay, things are really good. Like in my head, in my emotional state, I don't think whatever I am looking for with all of this, I don't think I need to go to Burma to find this. Whatever I'm looking for, I can find here. I don't need to go do this, even though this is an insanely generous opportunity that this person was giving me. I basically told him that. I was like, I really appreciate this. And if nothing else, this 1 month that I've had has really, really clarified a lot of things for me. And so he's like, hey, no problem, happy to help. Whatever you want, and then he paid for my flight back to Virginia. And I think from that point, I was ready to go, okay, let's start doing life again. Let's get a job. Let's start getting back into society. I was much more clear headed and just felt prepared, where like life before all of this 10 years was just felt so complicated and scary and just very unsure of myself and all of that. And all of that was gone. I was like, okay, I got it. I understand. Get a job, make some money, maybe find a relationship if that is in the cards. And, it just seemed very simple and easy to do at that point. And that's pretty much all I did, was just, got a job as a mechanic, auto mechanic, and just kind of dived into that. Didn't know anything um, about cars or anything. I was like, but again, just like, I'm ready to go. Like, I can figure it out. Like, I
Yeah.
wasn't scared. Bolts, nuts, okay, hoses. Let's just, we'll figure it out. I'll learn. And around that time, I ran into the girl who is currently my wife, and was just like, okay, this seems like, yep, this is the person, that I can do a relationship now too. I understand. I've put a lot of myself to the side in a lot of ways, and like I can accept, a relationship and a person, and how it's so complicated and nuanced, and need to like actually listen to somebody instead of just my own opinions and how I feel, and that kind of thing.
That's cool.
I hope I'm not rambling too much, or
No, I want to hear
talking.
your story, man. That's what I don't want a whole bunch of just facts and order of events. All of us. I think everybody's interesting. I mean, I've met very few people that if you talk to them enough, you don't find out that they're one of the most interesting people you've met. And then it's true of all of them. So that is extremely interesting, which gives everybody the insight into what led up to you ultimately coming to your handyman business. So you met the woman who's now your woman for the rest of your life. You
Yep.
got back into working. Where did
Yep.
that take you?
Went from being a auto mechanic to welding. I In the shop that I was working at with the auto mechanic, I got to do a little bit of welding on like mufflers and stuff, and I was like, this is really interesting. I think I could. I think I want to do this. I want to learn more. I want to have opportunity to like really do welding. Um, and so I just called around and again was like, look, I have no experience. I I didn't go to school for this, but I think I can be really good at this. And if you just like, give me a shot, give me an opportunity, just like give me a week just to kind of really kind of figure it out, or just, and also maybe have somebody give me some tips. I think you're going to be satisfied with my work. And I found somebody that gave me that opportunity.
It's crazy what
And
happens when you just put yourself out there.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Just I don't know how. I wish I could give this to somebody of like, look, just
Yeah,
try,
just
just
try.
try.
That's the whole point is just try. My drone job that I had in Afghanistan. The way I got that job was by replying to an ad in the back of an Air Force Times magazine that was like 6 months old. And I went and got a new Air Force Times magazine to look for the ad to see if they were still advertising for the job. And they weren't. And I just mailed my stuff, like literally in the mail, with the stamp. I just mailed my stuff off to the company. And my first interview was a phone interview. It was a lot like you and me talking, or me and anyone else talking, just sitting and having conversation. It didn't even feel like an interview. But I literally told the guy on the phone, I was like, and I think it's part of just being open and not being, I think if you don't care what other people think about you and you're comfortable being who you are, I just told the guy the truth. His name was Joe Allison. I love the guy. I've got him on Facebook still to this day. He still lives not too far from me. We haven't gotten together for a while, but I told him, I was like, Joe, look, here, because he said, well, at some point, 45 minutes into the interview, we finally talked about the job and my qualifications, which we hadn't hardly even done yet up to that point.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, look, so, like, why should I hire you? I've got thousands of people applying. We've only got like a total of, I think at the time they had 120 positions, all of which were filled. And they were just trying to get six more guys. And I just was honest with him. And I said, look, man, I said, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm not tied down to any city. I'm not tied down to any state. I'm young. I'm intelligent. But more than anything else, I want this really badly. And I'm just promising you, person to person, if you hire me, I'll be the best. Like of the six guys, because he had told me there's going to be six people hired for the next batch to go through training together. And I said, I'm the kind of guy, if you hire me, I'm going to be taking whatever the coursework is home through our training, whatever we're doing tomorrow. I'm going to go learn tonight. So when I show up tomorrow, All I need is to ask some very specific, nuanced questions about what I didn't get. I will learn your drone system top to bottom, inside and out. If it requires skill sets I don't have yet, I'll put my own time into acquiring those skill sets. I will be the best field service engineer that you have, because that's my goal and I don't have any other responsibilities in life. I said, if you need somebody in Baltimore, like if something goes down in Baltimore and all of a sudden you need a guy to replace another guy, I don't care where I'm at or what I'm doing. You can just call me and say, "Hey Ray, I need you to get on a plane and go to Baltimore for a week." And he told me later on, after the fact, months and months later, after I went through my training and finally got to meet him in person, he told me that was why he hired me, because I just felt so sincere. I just put myself out there and just said, "Look, I want this more than anybody else wants it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to have it. I know this is the direction I want to go in. And the only question is, do you believe me when I say that?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I had very much the same attitude of like, look, I want to be a welder. Somebody's going to hire me. I won't stop until somebody gives me a job. Now, is that going to be you? Because I guarantee you, if you just give me a very small amount of time, I'm a very smart person. Whatever it is that I need to learn, I'm going to learn it. I'll be very very good. And you can even start me out with a lower pay. Like, this is just a trial thing. Like, you don't know if I'm going to work out, and I totally understand that. But like, can you give me a shot? Can you let me get behind a mask and like actually put some metal down? They did. And I was very good. It took me very little time to become very good at what I was doing, because I also, at this time of all this, you know, um, all this self reflection and all that, I have gained this ability to become extremely focused, right? Like, just laser focused. If I
Which I'll
need
bet
to
all
be,
that meditation helped with a lot, because a lot of what
oh yeah,
meditation is actually just teaching yourself to be in control of what you do or don't let in and ponder on.
yeah. So it's this balance, right? It's this balance of focus and relax. And those two things, a lot of people, like, they're like opposites, but it's these like two beams of light almost that come together in this balanced place. And you'd be surprised when you can be relaxed. That helps you think clearly. And you just, like, you kind of say, slow down, slow down, think things through. But then also being focused of, okay, these are the steps that I need to do, like being just, yeah, clear minded.
Well,
I
and
mean,
it's not
any,
a neurotic, there's a neurotic type of focus. There's the type of
yeah, yeah,
focus where you're like, and then there's focused where the reason it's a focus is just simply because you're not letting the other stuff in. Which then,
yeah.
and I've done this with my handyman business. It's been a long time, but I'm sure you've heard me mention like the worst period of time for me in this business, when it had to be 7 days a week, all day, every day. I was always behind. I was taking on purposefully more than I could handle so that I could fire clients and start saying no to lower paying work. And I was like mentally not in a great place. And I would freak out every now and then because it just seemed insurmountable. But I actually started, I don't know if you would quite call it meditation, because that, to me, that seems to imply you're doing it for a long period of time. But I started making myself stop, and I just called it mindfulness, but it's not much different, which is at a job, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I am behind, when I have the urge to start rushing, which I was learning was going to take me longer to rush and make mistakes than it would to just calm down and do it right. I started doing just mindfulness meditation, and I'd be in an empty move out, smoke detectors beeping or whatever, and I'd go to the kitchen and just sit down on the floor and lean up against the wall. No particular position. I would just sit and I would just close my eyes and just focus on feeling my breath come in. This as a novice, nobody ever taught me how, but I would just focus on my breath coming in. 18 things would come into my mind. I had listened to Sam Harris. You might know who
Mm.
he is if
No,
you're in
I know, I
meditation.
know. He's
Um,
very good.
I don't like a lot about Sam Harris, but I don't need
Yeah.
to like everything about everybody to get value from them. And he had said enough times for me to understand that things will come into your mind, and that's okay. It's you're not fighting them out. When they come in, you just recognize that they did, you accept that they did, and then you refocus yourself again. You just go back to your breath, go back to your breath, go back to your breath. And I will tell you, man, 10 minutes, the person I was showing up to the job before meditating was a frantic, scared person who's wondering if they're just an idiot for even trying to be a business owner, if they're about to fail their whole family, like just the worst feeling you can imagine, just hypomanic about it too. 10 minutes of that, and all of a sudden I'm just floating through the house. I'm just the jobs are easy. I know what I need to do. I'm spending an extra 1.5 seconds per task before I do it, just thinking for an extra second and a half and going, yeah, don't forget to grab the tape when you grab the other drywall stuff. And it changed a lot. Like I highly recommend to people, whether you want to call it meditation or mindfulness or just
Yeah.
whatever, if you can sit down and just quiet yourself, and like I said, not fight things coming into your brain, don't get mad at yourself because you failed to stop it from entering, just
Hmm.
understand that it did and refocus back on your breath, refocus and refocus, and over time you start like any other skill. The more you weld, the better you get at welding. The more you practice telling your brain what it's going to focus on, the better you are at focus. And then focus is no longer a job. Focus is just a place that you can enter. And which is what I do on my move outs when I'm not live streaming. And I don't live stream probably just half of them, at the most. When I'm on a move out now, I don't have to do any mindfulness or meditation. I enter that space when I get there. Just mentally, I go into the new space of now I have a bunch of easy work that I know how to do and that I've built kits and inventories for. And whatever is non standard, I have the skills to do it and I'm not worried. And I just put my earbuds in, and listen to something, usually a podcast, and just get to work. And it feels great.
Absolutely. Everything that you said would have been exactly how I would have said it with my experience,
Yeah, it's amazing.
years of
It will
experience.
do a lot for you. I probably should get back
That's it.
into it these days, honestly.
Yeah, everything you said, exactly that. Just it's just that simple. Even to the point you made of, it becoming like almost like a retraining of your mind. I mean, if we want to get scientific, you literally are.
Oh, you are. Yeah. You're
Yeah,
literally strengthening neuronal connections and severing other connections
it's a
and
skill.
rewiring your brain. And you're
Yeah,
doing that when you're welding. You're doing the exact same thing. You're building little
yep.
welding modules, a little piece of your brain's going, the stick feels a certain way when it touches, and I know when it feels that way, and then I do this, then this is the result, and we get dopamine when we get the right result, and the dopamine comes in, and then the neurons go, oh, we did the thing, and then we got the dopamine. Let's strengthen that connection even more. And then before you know it, it's like shooting guns for me. Guns that I'm good at shooting, that I've shot a lot. Those for me, I'm not aiming. I'm really not. I'm looking at the target. There are sights between me and the target, but I'm not aiming. I'm looking at the target, and there's a module in my brain that, as I'm wavering around just the tiniest little bit around that target, the module in my brain just sees when I'm at the right place and the finger pulls and the
Hmm.
trigger pulls and the target gets hit. And that's how our brains, it's a beautiful thing really, that's how our brains work. You can train your brain to really become an expert at anything you want it to be, whether it's an expert at shooting, expert at welding, or specifically to become an expert at being in control of itself and telling itself what it's going to be doing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that was, I think, one of a small note that I had put down. You were talking about. You mentioned like feeling that like panic, of like, oh God, what am I doing? I'm running, this business.
Yeah,
And
I still
it,
get it these days.
yeah, it'll happen to me. I'll be just driving along, heading to my job. Nothing's happening. There's nothing wrong.
Yep.
And then there's this just like
Ugh,
spark of like panic of like,
yep.
oh God, what am I doing?
What
You
am I
know?
doing? This is I'm gonna fail.
Yeah,
Yep. I
exactly. I'm
all
gonna
the
fail.
time.
Like
I
my
do
whole
it in the
family, we're gonna
evening
be
at like
homeless.
11 o'clock at night. I'll do that just
Yep.
laying in bed watching TV, and I'll think about that I have a YouTube channel with almost 24,000 subscribers and that there's real people in the world who are taking my advice. And then I think like, oh, like what if Mike fails? What if Mike and like loses his marriage and becomes homeless because he was dumb enough to listen to me because I was dumb enough to even put it out there and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. How am
Yeah.
I even
Neither am
running my
I.
own business? I mean, it can just just like
Yeah.
that and freak you
But it,
out. And then the solution, of course, is to just go, well, you know what? I'm doing it, and other
yep.
people are doing it. And I'm either going to do it and I'm going to focus and I'm going to get it done right. And I'm going to take the risks I need to take and hopefully come out good. Or I'm going to go back and get a regular 40-hour a week job, making $20 an hour, and just sort of do what I'm told the rest of my life. But I'm with
Yeah.
you, man. Sometimes those moments of realization, I don't know, to me, they feel like realization. It feels like those are when I'm honest with myself. And
Yeah.
then this and everything else is just me living in my own fantasy world 24 hours a day until reality pops back.
Yeah, it's almost like the mind, like that. Those moments, and they come and go very quickly. But I have to recognize. I'm just being real with you and everybody out there. Like these moments, they happen, and it's almost as like the mind and like can't handle that because that is the truth. That is like kind of the reality of like this is a big thing, and like so the mind has to go. Okay, just like we're not going to think about that. Everything's fine. Everything's
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Can
We're
I tell you,
everything's great. No, there's no problems. Don't look there. Do
yeah,
not look in the closet.
you just don't. Um, I want to tell you a quick story, and I can't quote like the university or any of that, but it's a book I love to read. And one of the books I was reading once, and I spent a good couple years really, in fact, that's how I found Sam Harris. It had nothing to do with mindfulness or meditation. It was the neuroscience part of his life, and it was
Hmm.
one of his books. But he was so I don't know if it was him or one of the other books. But when I was in that mode of reading a lot about neuroscience, I was reading this one book where they were talking about a big study that was done, and it was one of the earlier studies that started bringing this to light. But the goal with this experiment was supposed to be sort of to quantify the extent to which depressed people do not have an accurate perception of their reality. And the idea was going to be the experiment was relatively simple is the participants have a switch on a table, or I don't know where the switch is, but they've got a switch and they've got a light bulb, and they're told, we want you to flip the switch back and forth to turn on the light bulb. But we have a system in place where sometimes when you flip the switch, it's able to turn on the light bulb. And sometimes when you flip the switch, it's not able to turn on the light bulb. And the participant's job is actually to try to figure out percentage wise how much control he had over that light bulb. So if you flip the switch, if 50% of the time the light bulb comes on and 50% of the time the light bulb does not come on, and you're not supposed to count, they made it clear like we want you to just feel this, just play with it and just try to let us know how much control you think we've given you over the light bulb. So they were going to be able to quantify in the end, they were going to be able to put a number to how distorted a depressed person's perception of reality and how much control they have is. And the craziest thing happened was what they found out was depressed people have an accurate perception of how much control they have. And everybody else in the world who's not depressed has a very inaccurate. They all normal people think they have more control than they do. And
Hmm.
part of what depression is actually having an accurate assessment of how much control you do have, which I just found to be super, super interesting because it
Yeah.
almost implies, that the way to get ahead in life, if you want to do well, you almost need to just sort of ignore going back to those voices of like, what are you doing? That might be the accurate representation of reality, like the little glimmer of actual clarity that your brain gets for a second. But I still wouldn't have it any other way. I'd rather have a super inaccurate impression of reality that convinces me to keep trying.
Yeah, yeah. No, it definitely feels like it's moments of clarity. But it also doesn't deter me. You know, whatever. Like I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a big deal. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
How much control do you have? Just it's all right.
You just got to
Just
look
keep
at what the
going.
alternative is, and if
Yeah,
you can handle the alternative, go for it. But I
yeah,
can't. I need to be doing something that matters all the time.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. Um, so we're at 1 hour 30 minutes. Did you need a small break, and we can just kind of edit this
Yeah,
out?
let's
Did you?
do that. You want to do that?
Of
That's cool.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're back. So you learned welding, became a job or a career for you for a while. Then what?
Um. Then I decided with my wife. I was like, I ended up going to a started at a factory, but then got really good at what I did, and I think I was there for like 3 years, and was like, look, I know that I don't have certification, but I'm good at what I do. Very, very, I think maybe only one or two items that I actually welded ever came back, so I was very accurate with what I was doing. And pretty much anything that they needed me to work on, I could do. I was even taking over stations where other people, when they went on vacation, I was working on their stuff, which I wouldn't normally do, but I could do it. And I basically went to the management. It was like, I think I would like to be paid a little bit more. I was only making at the time like $12 an hour, which I mean, it's insane for like a welder.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
a bad welder's starting out at like 30 or 40 these days.
exactly.
Starting out as a beginner who's just capable and nothing more.
So I was like, look, I think I've paid my dues, and I'm not asking to make as much as these other guys I'm not that have been here longer and actually have taken schooling to do what they do. But if I'm capable of doing the work and you're satisfied with my quality, then I feel like I deserve, at this point, I deserve to get bumped up a little bit. And I wasn't even really asking for that much. I was like, I think 16 an hour is, fair. That's fair. I'm still newer than a lot of these guys and everything, but you can afford that. And essentially they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I was straightforward. I was like, you've essentially given me all the experience that I need. I can go somewhere else. So it's kind of up to you. Do you want to keep me? I'm I'm never late. I barely call out. I'll do overtime. Like you have no reason. Give me a reason why you're saying no. And they couldn't. And I was like, okay, well, I got to do what I got to do for me, and that's just what it was. And so I just went and talked to a couple other factories, and instantly found another job starting off at 18 an hour. And I was like, well, that's kind of a no brainer. And so I started working for this other factory, and they paid more, but I was working 70 hours a week, and eventually they had to shift me to second shift, which they didn't have. They were starting a second shift, and kind of put me in this sort of leadership position. But again, I ran into this problem of like, look, I have no problem being the sort of head guy to kind of look over and make sure and still do my work. I'm not just a manager. I'm welding. I have stuff on my booth and I'm getting it done.
Yeah.
You wanted me to check on these other guys, and if they run into a problem, you want me to be the guy that they can come to ask questions. And I was like, that, that should you should compensate me for that. And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to work these hours and have all this extra responsibility for the same amount of pay. So it's up to you. You decide. If the answer is still no, then I'm going to have to leave. I always try to give people that opportunity to, like,
Yeah, do
because
the
I,
right thing, do something fair by me.
yeah,
Aviation was the exact same way. We would hire guys. There's Pima Community College here with an aviation school. So you can, get out of high school and go to this just like any trade school and get your license. And then a lot of guys, and this was right down the road from Bombardier where I worked on aircraft. And they'd come in, freshly licensed. Maybe some of them start out as low as 13. I think it was usually like 15 to 18 an hour, starting out as a brand new dude right out of school with no experience. You spend a year on one airframe, whether it be like a Challenger or a Global or a Learjet or just whatever. Anybody who puts 1 year into the same airframe for the entire year, a year later, they're almost an expert. There's a finite number. If you're an A&P mechanic, there's a finite number of jobs you're ever going to need to do that airframe, and you're going to do that dozens of times that year. Or for the bigger ones that are more rare, maybe you're going to do it 6 times that year, but that's 6 more times than an experienced mechanic from some other company on some other airframe. You have 6 times more experience than him. So your value goes from $15 an hour to $25 an hour in a year, the value of what you're providing. And yet it was the same kind of thing that you're talking about where these guys would come in fresh at a lower pay. A year later, they're extreme. They're the guy that everyone goes to ask, how do I do this job? They're getting it done in a third the time that somebody who's fresh on that airframe is going to do it. And they would go ask for a raise to get bumped up from like 15 to 17. And the answer is always no. And in aviation, the only way you get ahead, the only way you increase that hourly pay over the course of your career, you have to leave. You just,
yeah,
and sometimes you just leave and you go down the road to like Evergreen, which isn't far from here. You go work for Evergreen for a year. They pay you $6 more than what you were making at Bombardier. And then after a year at Evergreen, you become more valuable to them and they don't want to pay you more. And then you come back to Bombardier and they hire you on at 19 an hour,
right,
But it's like they refuse to see the value that you're giving them. Or I think they see it, but they refuse to admit it because admitting it means, if they're making $4 an hour off of you, which they're making way more, but I mean, pretend like they're making $4 an hour off of you, and now you want an extra $2. They don't want to give up that $2 an hour, even though you're providing that value to them. They just don't want to give it up, and so you have to leave and you have to go somewhere else.
yeah. It's I don't understand it. I've never really understood it. With the first job that I got, the first welding job, I got wind of, like, what I was making and how much they sold them for. I did some calculations roughly, and I could be off. I'm just the guy that puts it together, but I was pretty sure over the course of the year by myself, I was making the company like $2 million, or maybe you cut that in half, $1 million, right?
Cut that in
I'm
half, and then cut that in half for overhead, and then cut that in half even
yeah,
for, I don't know, taxes and training and whatever. Cut it
yeah.
in half 4 times, and they're still making a lot of money on
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm just asking for a couple more dollars. Like,
you. Mhm.
really, like, it's nothing. It's nothing off of you. And, like, I just don't get it. I don't understand how people can think that way of, like, don't you see what I'm doing? Like, it almost feels like they don't know the business, which is, like, kind of scary to me. I'm like, you don't even understand what's going on here. Like, um, how then you're not doing a very good job at
Yeah,
your job.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I had some crazy hours, and then that expectation of just being like the go-to guy, not even a manager. I wasn't even asking for a title. I'm just like, just give me a little bit more compensation, and I'm happy to do this. And I was really good at what I did. I was at the second factory. I was making server racks for like Google and Apple. These things have to be very accurate.
Oh
The
yeah.
tolerances are very, very small because everything has to fit exactly. So like, to be able to weld metal and then it not have it not bend or warp or do anything, you have to be very, very good at what you're doing. And rarely would my racks be out of spec. Like, and if it was, I could fix it within 5 or 10 minutes. Like, I knew exactly what I needed to do to adjust it. Where I was like correcting other people's work. They're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what's wrong. And I'd have to go and look at it and figure it out and adjust it and be like, there you go, it's fixed. But anyway, the hours were just getting insane. It was kind of putting pressure on my marriage, and working second shift. She was working first shift, so like we weren't seeing each other. I was basically sleeping when she'd be awake, and she was sleeping whenever I'd be
Been
awake.
there,
And
done that, man. Most of my aviation career was like 6:30 p.m. to 7 a.m., like actual graveyard shift.
yeah, so we sort of made the decision of like, this isn't worth the money, right? Like, we would rather have the time together than have the money. And I agreed. And I was like, part of me is that man that wants to provide and protect and make sure everything's secure. But I was like, I had to listen and be like, look, this is very, very important to her. I personally could keep doing this, even though it's hard for me. But I could do this. But if she's saying she can't, then I need to listen and adjust
Part of
something.
what you have to provide is a good life.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, look, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to go get a job that's not it's not critical. So I ended up going and working for a coffee shop. I was like, the worst thing I can mess up is a coffee. I just remake it. And I think I'd been put in like almost 5 years, 4 years of like some really intense work. I think for me personally, I just like, I needed a break. I needed things to like cool down. I was like, did the math. I'm pretty good with money. And I was like, we're not going to save any money, but we'll pay the bills. It was like, I was getting like 30 hours, but it was stress free and it was easy. Um, so I did
And
that
you,
for a
you got
while.
to spend time with your wife. You got to
Exactly.
actually be with the person that you married.
Yeah, yeah, and I was able to take over some of the housework, which was she was working as a teacher, and she was not able to handle that. So I was taking over that, which just took a load off of her plate a bit. Then went from that to one of her friends had a job where she was a manager of like a resale store. The owner would buy like truckloads of pallets of returns from like Target and Amazon and stuff, and they would resell it. And she said, "Hey, we need some help. They really need some help with like inventory management and unloading and getting this stuff." And I talked to the owner, and I was like, I had to take a small pay cut, but I was like, we need to quickly get me back to what I was even making at the coffee shop. Um, and that was a bit of a risk, but I was like, this potentially could be um, a good thing because I might be able to, if he expands, maybe take over a whole store or something like that. And inventory management was something that I was very interested in. I have that kind of mind of like figuring out
Like systems and
processing
stuff. Yeah.
systems exactly. And I was like, whatever you got going on, I know I can make it better. Like, I didn't say that, but I knew that I
If you
could.
like systems, you know you like systems.
Yeah. So I ended up making their their inventory processing literally 4 times as efficient and saving them a ton of money. Um, but then I'm trying to get to the handyman part. That eventually, me and the owner kind of had um, butted heads, and he just couldn't like let go. Like even though I was showing him this insanely efficient process, he couldn't keep his hands off of it. And I'm like, you hired me to do this job. I'm showing you, you have physical evidence that this is better. Just let me do my job. That's all I'm asking. If you have any questions or concerns or want to know or want me to explain, just ask me. I will be happy to take as much time as I need to explain it to you and why I'm doing certain things and why I'm not doing certain things. And if you we can just talk about it. He couldn't do it. It was just, I'm the owner, do it my way. And I'm just like, I
It's like, be a low paid employee.
yeah, I was like, I
That's what
gotta
he
go,
wanted
man.
from you.
I can't do this. I can't. I'm trying to help you. I'm here to help you. I took a pay cut to come and help you and your business.
But
Please,
not to
please,
be a
just
cog in a machine.
yeah, not to be a cog in the machine. I am helping you. Why can't you see this? I'm not trying to be the owner. I'm not trying to be the boss. I'm just trying to do what you're wanting me to do and what is best for you. If you could just see that. If you can't, then I can't work for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I left and was like, okay, I'm done with people. I'm done with management. I'm done with all this. I have to find something where I'm in charge because it just simply isn't working this way. And so I had planned to just do something like work from home. I'm like a very much a homebody kind of person. Again, most probably a lot to do with all of the time that I spent alone and meditation and stuff. I think, but just naturally, my natural setting is much more of an introvert. So I'm like, I can just work from home. I'll get some kind of data entry job or something, and I can just be on my computer and do my work and clock out, and I'll be fine. But in the meantime, I was like, well, my stepdad had died, and he was a contractor for a large a grocery chain, and he had a bunch of tools and stuff, and he left them to me. I was like, well, I have all these tools. Maybe I can fix something in the meantime to just kind of generate some money. And I told my wife, I was like, just like make a post. You have a lot of friends. I got like 40 on my Facebook profile. She's got like 400. I'm like,
Yeah.
just make a post. Say, hey, husband's got some free time. Anybody needs some stuff fixed? Here's the number. Within 24 hours, I had a week's worth of work booked out. And that's really what started this whole thing of like, maybe this is something I can actually do. And I had never even thought about that until that little event happened. Never even thought about it. And then it just kind of snowballed into, okay, now I have, next week and there's more work. And then I'm like, all right, let me try to turn this into something because clearly there is a demand for it. If there's demand and I have tools, like I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm handy person with
Yeah.
all of this
If
background.
a Facebook post keeps you busy for 2 weeks, then
Yeah,
clearly there's something to look at.
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I mean that's pretty much just how it started. And don't recommend it. But I literally went from not having a job to just going, okay, we're just doing this full time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's outstanding, man. So, I assume you probably weren't charging enough or taking it too seriously at first, because it sounds like the initial foray into it was literally just like, we got to figure something out and we need some cash. What was the process of figuring out? How did you come to decide that this was going to be like a career and that you were going to do it in a bigger way? Was it like a slow evolution, or did you did something snap and you suddenly went like, because if you're like me, and it seems like you are a lot like me, I get curious about a thousand different things, and I quickly dive into everything I'm curious about. I just sort of enter real quick and see what's going on. And sometimes it grabs me and pulls me in. And when it does, I dive all the way in, like just as deep and fast and hard as I can. And if it's something that's for me, then it is, and I keep pursuing it. And if it's not, then I move on to the next interest. But was it like that for you, or was it like a slow evolution?
No, it was exactly like that. It was like, okay, there's some potential here. And it was, yeah, it was just more of like, okay, let's just do this. Like, let's just dive in, like head first. Like, we'll see where this goes, right? And then it just became very clear very quickly that like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like the um and it, again, just more of a personal thing for Mike. It felt very natural. Like, okay, just like, things break. That's just a natural, universal law, and they need to be fixed. And so there's got to be a guy to fix it. Why not me? I can do that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
fixing stuff all over my house and fixing my own car, and like, it just made sense. It was simply like this. Just it just makes too much sense to not go and just pursue it as hard and as fast as I can.
So how did it grow after, your first customers were friends and friends of friends and maybe family? What was the growth process from that to where you're at now?
So, um, I guess it has been a year, but really it's been like 6 months for like the business being established. I was wanting to do like a little trial period. I quickly got insurance because I felt like that was one, protecting me, but also a reassurance to any client that I could say that with confidence that like, hey, I don't have a business established yet. I That is the plan. I just need to kind of get a little more capital, but I am insured. So like, you can trust me and trust that you're protected. That was a big point that before I got the business established officially, that I wanted to make sure that I and the customer had that protection. Um, at the beginning, yeah, quickly I think I started out at $25 an hour because I was like, well, that's more than I was making welding. So that seemed fair. I was like, I'm not, I don't know anything about the business. There's not a legit business. So at least I can, one, that would be cheap enough to get clients and get money, which was like the main
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, oftentimes in life the main point is I got to get money in the bank, and I got to get money in the bank right now.
Yeah. Um, I was very fortunate because we had a nest egg. I'd been saving, and it wasn't, it wasn't this critical thing of like, oh, I don't have enough money in the bank. I had like $10,000, like, so I felt safe, but I didn't want to touch it if I didn't have to. I wanted this to generate enough to pay all the bills, but I wasn't panicked if it didn't pan out that way for a month or whatever. And then quickly realized like that's just too low, and I think I went up to about $50. It only took me a couple weeks to be like, okay, I can charge a little more than this.
Yeah.
$50 to go and put in a ceiling fan or something like that. And then again, it was only about a couple more weeks, or I'm like, okay, that's probably just a little bit too low. I'm wanting to um, pay for gas and all of this, and then start doing my numbers and being like, okay, and looking into found your channel, and like you're promoting like $100 an hour, and then just trying to do like, okay, this is your where you're at, cost of living versus mine. And so right now, what is I think fair for my area is 75 to $80 an hour. I That's $80 is like what I normally charge, but it does I actually do increase it between 80 to 100. It kind of just depends. Um, so I am definitely out there at the top of a um, high quality, high paid handyman for my area. And yeah, I just needed to take some time to like figure it out to see if that like one that this was something I could do and that was there was enough demand. And looking into the numbers, I'm not in a like really populated area. I live in a city, but it's only like 80,000 people here.
Okay.
And
It's about the size of my hometown, so I can actually
yeah,
relate to that. I mean, my hometown might be over 100 by now, but when I left and joined the Air Force, when I was a young man, I can definitely picture that 80,000. And I think you're right. In fact, I was going to start a handyman business in my hometown. It was one of many. I was considering a few options because I was moving back home right before I met my wife, and she kept me here. But I was most likely going to be starting a handyman business full time, and it was looking like about $80 an hour, at least starting out at that time when I was doing my research. Looked like about the right price for my hometown. It looked like anything more than that, and I would probably have a lot of trouble getting clients, at least initially until I develop a reputation. And anything less than that, I wouldn't be charging enough. So that sounds pretty close. I assume it's low cost of living where you're at too.
yes, yeah. So the average income is 25,000.
Oh yeah, that's a
So it's
very
very
low
low.
cost.
So $80 is like your $100.
Yeah,
100, that's like 100 between 80 to 100, that's like 100 dollars an hour. Like, I
yeah,
mean, it's really good money. I'm making probably double that, right? I'm making like 50, 60,000. So, yeah, I'm not cheap. But I provide very very good quality. At least that is like the focus of like communication, showing up on time, quality of work, and just making it worth that.
yeah. No, it really is. That's like all the work is easy to learn. Anybody can swap out a toilet fill valve. It's learning how to run the business, and part of running the business is your client's experience of what it was like to do business with, which seems to be what most people are missing.
Yeah, we have a kind of a unique it's it's unique because you're dealing with a lot of property managers. And my right now I'm a mix. I'm work probably about 50% homeowners, 50% property managers, but I am focused and working towards being 100% property managers. I just can't do that right now.
Mhm.
But the place that I live is really unique because there's 4 colleges in this town, which is why I'm pretty sure I can do, or I will be able to do, property managers only with that low population and low cost of living.
Yeah,
I should be able to do that.
yeah, yeah. Because all those college kids are renting something. Some of
Yes.
them are on campus, but from my experience these days, it seems like most college kids are not living on campus. They're living somewhere off campus and paying rent.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of rental properties
And
in
that
my
should
area.
seems to me that should mean more turnover of properties
Yes.
too, because they're whether they go home for the summer or not, even if they stay over the summer, the maximum amount of time most of them are going to be there is going to be 4 years.
Yep.
So you should have a much higher turnover rate of properties, which would mean more move outs, which are really like my bread and butter. They're my absolute favorite.
Yeah, they're my favorite too. I've gotten to do quite a few of them, and I love doing move outs. If I could just do only do move outs, that's what I would do.
And that's basically what I'm doing these days. Now that I got my son kind of learning the ropes and trying to get up to where he can take my place in this business, I let him have all the occupied properties. It's extremely rare now that I ever call anybody to schedule a job. I let him take all the occupied ones. I'm knocking out all the move outs. Every now and then I do one that's like a big job that just requires my skill set and I bring him along to train him, but man, just doing move outs is great. Do you have a process down for them?
I mean,
Or are
just
you in the process of developing your process? I'm sure it'll change over time.
I mean, I just follow exactly your instructions. I mean, it's so simple, but like a very, very effective. Just start on one wall and just go through, and anything that can either move or, um, break, or, any things that have parts, just check them,
Yeah.
And it's really that simple. And yeah, just go sweep through the whole house. Um, and just check everything. Check all the drawers and towel bars and toilets, and just flush and turn on everything and just see if it works the way it should.
Yeah.
Um, that's
So
it.
you're usually inspecting as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't. I don't even care if I lose a little bit of time. I just inspect, and I just make my list, and I go to them and I go, hey, this is what I found, and then majority of the time, and maybe I'm lucky, they just say fix everything. Whatever it was, just they'll look it over for 30 seconds and go, okay, just yeah, whatever, fix
Are
it.
you giving that to them with a price, or are you just giving them a list and they're saying, go do your thing?
So a lot of the move outs I've been doing have actually been for like these apartment complexes, because their maintenance isn't able to keep up with, I guess, the turnover. And so like I don't even give them a price. I like literally just hand them the list of things that they see, that I've seen that they need fixed, and they just go, just do it. They
That's
don't even
great.
ask me for a price.
That's great because they wouldn't be doing that if you had not already developed that reputation.
Yeah.
If I showed up there at that apartment complex tomorrow and offered my services, them not knowing me, they wouldn't let me just give them a list and tell me to go to town and knock it out. So that has to mean that you've done good by them by running your business solid, by charging fair prices and whatnot. So that's pretty outstanding.
Yeah, I've tried to keep all of my prices. Again, it's a work in progress. It's always going to be a work in progress, but just trying to keep really all the prices like very standard. And some things I'm going to lose a little bit of money on. Some things I'm going to make a little bit more on, and it'll just average out.
Yeah, it evens
And
out in the end.
yep.
And it's too easy because you probably know you could overcharge them.
Oh yeah.
You could go, I've got a captive audience, they need me, and
Yep.
I'm just going to start charging more, which you should do at some point to some small extent. But I think a lot of handymen make the mistake of realizing how valuable they are, and instead of trying to charge what they're worth, they just get in the habit of they charge more, it gets paid, and nobody complains. So they charge more and they get paid and nobody complains. So they do it again and they start getting greedy and they go, "Well, where's the ceiling?" And instead of looking for like the tiny little pieces of pushback, just like the random question, like, oh, what was up with this? Instead of looking for that and then hovering just under that, they just keep pushing, until people start getting angry and feeling used because they are being used. And then before you know it, your property manager, and a lot of property managers, more than half of them, in my experience, are female. And
Mm-hmm.
females are not by nature confrontational, so they're not going to come to you and try to sit you down and have a conversation about your pricing. They're just going to go find somebody else who's cheaper.
Yep.
And that's fine if the person who's cheaper, if they're cheaper because they're not good, then the property manager will learn their lesson. But if they're cheaper because you got greedy and they're really the cheaper guy is just simply the guy charging fair prices, then you're out of a job. So I don't know. Good for you for apparently, like I said, just by the fact that they're letting you do what they're letting you do, that means you have been running a solid business.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm surprised that that they're not questioning it a little bit more, because I am ready to answer any of the questions. But
Yeah.
no, I just try to just be very fair. I have this certain number that I'm trying to hit, and as long as all of that kind of adds up, and I look over my invoice and I go, okay, that all the numbers added up and it ended up being what I want, what I should be making that day, then I don't really care. Could I have charged a little bit more for this or that? Yeah, but I don't need it. I don't need to charge more than that. And I think just trying to be that very, very consistent, like almost like insanely transparent is a lot of property managers, they don't care, they don't want all the information, but just being very, very transparent, and they can see everything, that it's consistent, like there's it doesn't raise any questions, I think. And that's what I want that relationship to just be open, honest, that this doesn't have to be a scummy thing, like
Yeah.
it can just be
Yeah. It's
business.
integrity. You have
Yeah,
integrity.
yeah,
You're
just
going
business.
out there and providing a solid service to the world and getting rewarded for it.
Yeah. And I don't, I'm making more money than I've ever made, being able to provide my family with um, a lifestyle that we didn't have before. And that's good enough, for me.
Yeah, say more about that. How's it affected your family life?
Um, I mean, like, I think probably the overall, like, biggest thing is just stress free, or less stress, and like it feels like freedom, like real freedom, where like we can just breathe. And I don't know if it's in a way of like sort of like survivor's guilt or something like that, of like where we can see like other people around us are, they're like struggling, but we're like kind of thriving, and we're like, man, you know in a lot of ways, Brittany said this before, we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, be like, it, things are going too good. But yeah, just a lot of less stress, less arguments, less confrontation, just in the relationship. You know, she's able to go out and pursue her dreams and passions and not have to worry about money.
When she doesn't have to work anymore, right?
She doesn't have to. She does because she likes what
Yeah, but it's a
she's doing.
choice for her now. She's
It's
no
completely
longer stuck
100% a
having to
choice.
work. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's completely 100% a choice. And I like being able to give that, provide that to her. Because in a lot of ways, like, I'm sort of doing the same thing. This isn't, um, I don't want to say it's not hard, because it is, but it's not difficult. Maybe the using the English language a little bit.
Yeah, I've been trying to find the
Fluidly.
right word for that because I keep trying to say this isn't hard, but then I turn around and I talk about how it's the hardest thing I ever did. You
Yeah.
know, I think what's not hard about it is it's not hard to figure out what the steps are. You know, it may be hard in terms of like a toilet is hard to carry from your truck all the way up to the house and into the house, and it's hard to carry the old toilet back. Like things are heavy. It's hot outside. Things can be physically demanding,
Mm.
but it isn't hard to do this as a business. There's no difficulty involved in just figuring out how do I do this and how do I do this every day and get my days filled up. That's actually one of the easier parts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a smaller guy, so things are a little more difficult for me depending on what I'm doing. Like last week, I had to mount a microwave. The that goes under the cabinet, right? And so, like, I probably need to figure out a process for that, because I was like one arming it and trying to drill like like my muscles I could feel were just like,
Yeah.
barely able to hold this thing up while I tried to get this thing in. And it took a couple times. It took a couple attempts. By the time I was done, I was like, "Jeez,
I'll tell you
man."
what, by your 5th or 6th one, that's gonna be a 45-minute job at most, and it's gonna be super easy.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've already figured out like exactly what I need to do. I just need to
First time
figure out.
through, you already get a process going.
Yeah, I just need to find something, possibly something that can be adjustable and be able to slide it under and put the microwave on and just like adjust it to pull it up, and then I have my hands free and just kind of, put the bolts in, and then that's not hard. But yeah, but that's part of the learning process, right? I'm always, always, always learning, and I think that's part of why I like this.
Yeah.
I like doing this.
You
I
get to
love
problem solve.
I love problem solving. I love it. It's like I do puzzles for fun, right? So it's like my job is like a giant a Rubik's cube.
And then what's fun too is even after you've done like a dozen microwaves and it's kind of old hat to you now and there's no more challenge in it, then you get to start timing yourself and going, how fast can I do it? Or you get to look at your process even more closely and try to figure out, are there any steps I can cut out? Or are there any steps I can shave like 25 seconds off of? And you just get better and better and better at it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and certain things they're just going to be they're just going to take more time, right? Like the more complex, the more pieces and components something has, the more that can go wrong, right? Like a garbage disposal, it's not that complicated. It's got just a few parts. So it's very easy to diagnose what's going on, and you kind of just already know, okay, we're just going to start with this because this, over time you've seen this is likely the problem. It's just bound, and you just need to wrench it and it's fine and it works. But if it's not coming on, then when you go to the breaker panel, like you already know, like you're able to just kind of quickly
Yeah.
figure it out over time. And the more complicated things like a refrigerator, dishwasher, they have more parts. So that'll take more time, more experience of going and dealing with these broken appliances, or anything really. You'll just, yeah, you just have to accept that over time you're gonna learn this. You're not gonna It's not all gonna be on YouTube, and well, it is, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. Um, you'll learn how to be better the more you do it. So don't put too much on yourself, I think, is what I'm trying to say. If you're just starting out,
And you'll learn how to learn as well.
yeah,
Like you start getting faster and better at learning. You start One of the skills I think I've developed, the funniest skill is I feel like I've developed the skill of watching the first 10 seconds of a YouTube video about how to do something and knowing from the first 10 seconds whether the next 16 minutes is going to be worth watching or whether I need to find another YouTuber that did a different style of video. And I don't even know, I don't think I could put on paper and tell somebody, here's what you look for. But I've even developed the skill of just opening up a video and going, I've seen ones like this before. This guy's not going to step by step me through this job.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You take in like the video and just like you can kind of just skip through it and be like, okay, this is probably where the information I need is. I don't have to listen to the whole thing. I can just kind of move it along and then see if that's it. That's not it. Okay, is it in this little section here? Nope, that's not it. New video. And you just save even more time doing that.
So
Um,
what's your plans now then? I mean, so you're full time, providing a full-time living for you and your family. You've got your wife in a position where if she wants to work, she can. If she doesn't want to work, she doesn't have to. Your bills are taken care of. So what's the plan now?
well, so the next step right now is getting to the end of the year and having my first tax. My first process. I still need to go and get uh, CPA. I need to go and find somebody that can help me with deductibles and maybe filing my taxes, and that's really the next big step for me. um, and once we get through that first year of taxes and seeing actually how much we can, we can deduct, and try to adjust that, see what I've done correctly with my accounting software and what maybe I need to improve with. I think that's probably just going to take more years, which is fine. I accept that. After that, I think my first big goal will definitely be getting a van. I think I don't mind the truck that I'm using, but I can see that the van, even though it's going to be a big cost up front, I'm pretty sure I will recover that money much faster than I think. Um, yeah, I think that the van is really kind of the last step. Getting
Last thing.
taxes for me. I don't really see anything else in the on the horizon that I can think of. Just yeah, taxes and a van, and then just more focused on um, moving even more of the business towards property managers. That's it.
And then get to enjoy your life for a little bit.
Yeah,
Get to
yeah.
settle into something that you're good at, that you enjoy doing, that you have autonomy over, and just enjoy your life, spend time
I
with
think
your wife and stuff.
Yeah, I think I do that a lot. I'm very much a person about balance of like, yeah, we're gonna work and it's Monday through Friday, but we're also gonna relax. We need time to recover. We need time to spend um, with the wife and the kid, and so like I feel like I'm already in a lot of ways doing that or aiming for that balance. Um,
Well, and I
but
don't
yeah,
mean to say more hours out of the week spent relaxing. I mean, for a longer period of time, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years of just finally, because you've been through a lot. Like you've had a few dozen jobs at least. You've been homeless. You've gone all over and done all this stuff. Probably most of the time, wishing that you could finally just like relax for a while.
very
And now
true.
you kinda get to do that. Now you kinda get to settle in and go, "Cool, cool. I think I know what my future is. I think I know what I'm doing. I'm not gonna be leaving this job in 3 to 6 months. I'm not worried about not making enough money. So now I've got this part of my life taken care of, and I can start focusing on what in my opinion, are the more important parts of life."
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah. Um,
Do you wanna give any well, it doesn't have to be advice actually, but do you have any just sort of parting words for the viewers? I think we've had a great interview, so we'll probably shut it down here pretty quick. But I want to make sure with everybody that sort of you get the last word. You get the opportunity to just say whatever message you want to send out.
yeah. There I only have 6 months, right? It's not a lot. You've had a lot of um, people on here with a lot of experience. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to speak from the perspective of somebody who's only had about 6 to 9 months. And I'm talking to the people who either are thinking about it, doing it maybe slightly part time, and or are just starting to get into this. So this would be like my advice to be successful in these first couple of months. And one is just to stay motivated, stay hungry, believe in yourself, like make smart choices with the work that you're taking on. I think that's very important. um, do what you can to um, track your numbers, to know. It's so important at the beginning to know, this is my goal. This is how much money I need to survive all of my bills are being paid. This keeps my head above water. Just knowing that number and then breaking that number down into this is my weekly goal or this is my daily goal, that can help you in a multitude of ways. You could be at the end of the month, your goal is, let's just say, $2,000, and you know you've made $1,500, and you need $500 to finish paying the rest of your bills for that month, even though you may have already paid them, but you need to recover that. You then can make a decision if you got we'll say a $500 job where maybe, it's actually an $800 job, but you don't know, are you bidding against somebody? And you can go, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to charge $500. I'm going to pretty sure I'll be the one to do that job. I'm not going to lose any money, but that gets me to hit that goal and gets me to roll over into the next month and just be able to keep going. Just knowing very, very, very clearly what you need to make, what's beyond your goal, beyond what you need to make. It's just so important. It really takes a lot of, in my opinion and my experience, it takes a lot of pressure off. For me, it was $1,000 a week, which isn't anything. That's nothing.
Yeah,
But
for a handyman who can stay busy, that's really easy to earn.
yeah, and then also, you can kind of gauge it. Like maybe you're quite busy that month, and you're like, okay, I've already hit my goal. I'm kind of, I need to kind of like slow down. I need to pace myself. So, but I know I'm good. I know I'm okay. I know because my numbers are right, I'm fine. I can maybe pass on this job rather than like overextend and
Yeah.
it's so important knowing your numbers. And I could probably go on and on and on about it. Um, for a new person, maybe you don't have as much experience, you're not good with your hands, you feel like you're lacking a lot of skills with, like, maybe it's drywall, electrical, appliance repairs, all that kind of stuff. Try to limit yourself, be like smaller jobs, don't take on real big jobs. Practice, see it as practice, and start small so you can get comfortable with like your medium, whatever you're working with, and then you can then feel more confident taking on bigger and bigger jobs as you've gained that actual real world hands-on experience with whatever you're doing. um, and then I think the last thing is, which I know you promote, property managers, and that is definitely for me, that is the end goal. But if you're somebody new and you're where you live is going to be a completely new scenario, a completely different scenario than Ray or me, and I think that it would be important to accept that you're going to take on some homeowners, like
Yeah.
especially at the beginning. So if
I
you're
mean, if
going
you
to
don't
take
have
on,
capital in the bank to front the materials and to wait to get paid, you can't start full time with property managers anyways. You're going to find very few who are going to pay for the materials up front or pay you your labor quickly. So homeowners, or for somebody starting out without capital in the bank, that's just going to be how you start.
yeah, exactly. So if you're going to be working and you accept that you're going to be working with some portion of homeowners, you getting your Google business established and reviews, I think that it's helped me so much. I can't tell you. I've gotten so many jobs just simply by having a Google business and having a lot of good reviews. I'm sitting at the top of my list in my area. I'm number one
Oh,
when
that's
they look
great.
up. Yeah, when they look up handyman, I mean, people can pay to be sponsored and go above me, but
But you're the first organic result in
I'm the first organic
and
one.
people like me know that. Anytime I Google anything, I scroll right past. I don't even look at them and read them, and then scroll past. Everything that's sponsored on top, I just scroll straight past it and I go to the first organic result.
If you're wanting to work with homeowners or you're just starting your business, I think out of everything, that is like the it's basically free marketing.
Yeah.
It is going to give you so many jobs. If you know if they're there, if they're out there, people are looking. That's gonna be it. Just work on climbing that ladder to be as close to the top of that list as you can, which is just traffic, getting people to interact with your link and reviews and good pictures. Like it's not complicated.
Yeah.
Um, and dang, there was something else I was going to say. Oh, something that the last thing I wanted to say, which I haven't really heard you say specifically. You may have, but I haven't heard it. And this may just be like a duh thing. But for anybody that's thinking about doing this and wanting to get into property managers, do not even approach property managers until you have your business established, an LLC, an EIN number. They will not look at you. You will be wasting your time and your opportunity.
Yeah.
And you have to have your business established before you start talking to them.
Yeah. Because if you show up like without insurance, they're not going to say, just go ahead and get insurance and then we'll start working with you. Right off the bat, you've already shown them by showing up as a non established business who's not running a legit show. You've already let them know, hey, by the way, you need to mark me out of your books. Not a professional. This will not be easy working
And could burn your opportunity even once you get established. Not saying it would, but
No, I
I would not.
agree. That's exactly what I mean. By
Yeah,
showing up without it initially, you've already told them you shouldn't work with me.
yeah.
You
So
can
save.
you can go get all that stuff later, but we already know who you are.
Right. Yeah.
Which
So
doesn't make you a bad guy. There's plenty of people that are doing all kinds of things for money all over the world. I'm not judging anybody, but a property management company is a business and they
yeah,
want to do business with other businesses. They don't. They're not. Some of them are every now and then. There's some really cheap ones that are looking for just like a dude with a truck and a couple of tools and some free time so they can save some money. But the ones that you want to go after, they're just absolutely not looking for that. The ones who are going to pay you what you're truly worth. They want to pay you that because they're under the assumption that you are a legit business that they can rely on.
yeah, yeah. I think that's about it. That's all the really all the advice I have. I mean, I could sit here and ramble on, but I think
Oh,
those are
and I
the
know
main.
we will probably plenty of times in the future too. But no,
Yeah,
I'm kind of glad that the file got corrupted from our last. Like I could watch it, I could play it on my computer, I just couldn't edit it. But I'm kind of glad it got corrupted because I think this one was just way better. I think we had a good time and learned a lot more.
yeah. I just chalk it up to like the universe, man. It was
Yep.
supposed to. It was
Yeah,
supposed
just
to
karma.
happen. This was the real one. That was supposed to happen. It's all good. That was just a
Cool, cool. Well,
practice
stay on
run.
here for me.
Of course.
After we stop the recording, we'll talk for just a little bit. But in the meantime, I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I'll see you on the next one.